We seem to be struggling to score goals at the moment, but we are still getting results. And after that very tough 1-0 victory over Wolves, next up, the fourth round of the Carabou Cup against Manchester United. Let's go and kick some balls. Hello and welcome back to A Season with Aston Villa, the series in which we are taking a deep dive into the chalkboard and other statistics that we can find to help maximise our success in one season of the Premier League. And we are currently sitting top of the league, and we have 26 points from our 10 games. Second are Tottenham, they are also 26 points, and Manchester City are just behind on 24. It's pretty tough at the top, and we have had some success, but it hasn't all been plain sailing. We got off to an extremely good start before the Champions League started, and then things started to go a little bit wrong. But look at the fixtures: Liverpool, Paris Saint-Germain, Tottenham, Juventus, and now we've just had a very tough, hard-earned 1-0 victory against Wolves. A goal from a set-piece was the difference between the two teams. And so now we have a game coming up against Manchester United, the fourth round of the Carabou Cup. We are away at Old Trafford, and it is going to be a very difficult fixture. And the first place that I decided to go to take a look at this game was our own data hub. Now, if you remember in the last episode, we did a deep dive into our own performance, our own statistics, and there were one or two things that were concerning me. So because it's the Carabou Cup and I'm not really under pressure to do anything in this competition, and to be fair, we have enough games for this small squad to worry about, I thought I would try a couple of things out based on the statistics that I had found. Let's go and take a look at what I found. So if you remember, when I went to our team performance in the data hub, what I had noticed about the way that we were playing is that most of the possession gained was in our own half of the pitch. Now, that was a sign that possibly our defensive line was a little bit low. We'd been playing some very big teams, and we had been playing with a standard line and even a lower line against Juventus. It had probably caused most of our defensive actions to be in our own half of the pitch. So one of the things that I wanted to think about was that maybe our defensive line should be a little bit higher. And when I looked at the possession lost, you could see that most of the possession that we lost are around about the halfway line. And I kind of figured this might be because we are not playing a high enough offensive line. And so perhaps we need to look at maybe shifting the lines up a little notch, just to see if we could alter these zone maps a little bit in the future. So that was one thing that I had concerned myself about. And then the other thing was our defending. And in terms of the tackles made, we were making far less tackles during a game than most of the other teams. And if we go to the player performance now, and we look at the defenders and tackling for defenders, we can see that Maatsen made much more tackles than anybody else, whilst Mings and Luca Dean were making fewer tackles. It didn't make sense to why we were making fewer tackles at this point in time. But because of the lower line, we were perhaps making fewer tackles, but making more interceptions. So I decided to go and have a look at the stats for the team in terms of the Premier League. And then when I go to defending and I look at tackles won, sure enough, there we are, 18th in the table, right down the bottom of the table in terms of the amount of tackles won. But then when I looked at the amount of interceptions, there we are, second place, only one behind Leicester, who've made more interceptions than anybody else. So this was an indication to me that the defensive line was too low of late, and in order to improve that, we needed to just raise the defensive line a tad, probably play in a higher defensive line, and then I think we might see an adjustment to those statistics. When it comes to the amount of tackling that we do, and where on the pitch we are regaining possession. So I decided we'd look at that when setting up for Manchester United. I didn't really look too much in terms of Manchester United. I went to look at their last game against Newcastle. They didn't create an awful lot of opportunities. It was a tough match for them, Newcastle, which ended in a 0-0 draw. And if we go and have a look at the passes completed for Manchester United, and we just go to short passes for now, you can see that most of their play is happening down the flanks. Very little after the halfway line is going through the middle. So it does seem to me that their attack is going to happen down the flank. And if we go and have a look at the heat map for Manchester United, let's clear all that. You can see that most of their play is down the flanks. There is a little bit of play going on down the middle, but it does seem to stop at the halfway line. Attacking-wise, everything is going down the flanks. And so I felt as long as we defended well down the flanks, then we could also create opportunities. When I looked at their crossing data, and if we turn all these back on, we'll be able to see the crosses and the unsuccessful crosses, a lot of crosses coming in from the right-hand side, but also a lot of crosses coming in from the left-hand side as well. But there are names that occur every time. Fernandes, Mazraoui turns up a lot. Mazraoui, Fernandes. And on the left-hand side, Luke Shaw turns up quite a bit, as well as Malacia. Malacia is crossing Luke Shaw, and it goes on, Luke Shaw. So it does seem that the wing-backs are responsible for most of the crossing that is going on. So the wing-backs are actually getting forward quite often. And so without going into too much detail against Manchester United, I had come up with a plan to beat them. And I decided, first of all, that we were going to play higher up. Therefore, I was going to play Ollie Watkins as a pressing forward. We're going to play in the 4-3-3. I did want to dominate the midfield should they play in midfield. And also, I had decided to go down the flanks, because with the wing-backs being very high up the pitch, I decided that there may be space available behind. I also instructed the team to pass into space. We were going to play a shorter passing, higher tempo game, which we'd use to good effect of late. Work the ball into the box, play for set pieces, dribble less, and I wanted them to be more expressive today. I wanted them to try and score goals. I wasn't really worried too much about the cup. It would be one of those fixtures that would be forgotten by the fans fairly quickly, especially as it was Manchester United. But I was more concerned about the Champions League. In this game, I decided to counter-press, and I wondered if it was because we were regrouping that we were not winning the ball too high up the pitch. And so we decided that we would counter-press, but I would look at that as the game went on and take them off where necessary and put it back on where I thought we had the match momentum. And then out of possession, I decided to move from a low block to a mid block, but to push the line up higher, and everything else then would stay the same. We were going to continue to play in a balanced mentality. We were away at Manchester United. It wasn't like we should be storming all over them. And I thought we had picked a fairly strong team. If United rotated, they were going to find that we hadn't. We'd picked a very decent team that hopefully, I thought, could go and do the business. I wasn't too worried if we didn't win, and this is what happened. And so a very nice 2-0 away victory. I wasn't expecting it, but pushing the line up just a tad had maybe meant that we were winning the ball back in higher positions up the field, as well as the fact that we were counter-pressing and causing problems. Maybe we had adjusted that, and maybe those concerns that I had been addressed, and we'll start to see our possession gained zone map looking a little bit better in the future. In terms of the overall statistics, we were much the better team. As you saw, we were the better team. We outplayed them, really. We didn't get the possession, but I wasn't expecting to beat Manchester United in terms of possession, but we created great chances. One of the things that I did notice was that our tackle win ratio was 89% higher than it had been in any other part of the season. And so it was, by the look of it, a very, very impressive performance. If we go and have a look at the heat maps for Manchester United, you can see that most of what they were doing were short passes. They were around about the halfway line. They did try to play a lot down the left-hand side, and a lot of play also went on down the right-hand side. They did try to get it wide whenever they could. As you can see, we didn't have the possession. In fact, we didn't play very much in midfield at all. And most of our play went down the left-hand side, but again, mostly down this right-hand side where we caused a lot of problems for them. We scored 2 very good goals, and it was a good performance by us. It was a win I wasn't expecting, and we are in the next round of the Carabou Cup now. And so that's it for this episode. Another victory in the bag. If you are brand new to the channel, do all that good stuff that you can see on the screen, and that will help the channel to grow and will be greatly appreciated. And we'll be back next time for the Brighton game. They are sitting 18th in the Premier League. It should be a win. We are going to be keeping the lines higher up, possibly even higher than we played today. And I'm hoping that we're going to see another 3 points, put pressure on the 2 teams below us, and try to open a gap if it's at all possible. So all that remains to be said now is stay safe, take care, and we'll see you for the Brighton game.